any way that your student would want to connect to campus other than academics and sports, this is the way for them to do that. As I said, the federal Pell Grant, it is awarded to students seeking their first bachelor's degree. It is portable. What that means is if your child decides to transfer, whether it's mid-year or for the second sophomore year, eligibility of the Pell Grant is portable with the student. It doesn't mean just because you go to that school that you're only going to get it at that school. If the student decides it's not for me and they need to transfer out, it does go with them. And basically, it does, as I've got the mnemonics up there, the COA is cost of attendance, and that EFC is the magic number that comes from the FAFSA results. So it's awarded based on that. So the EFC drives the chart that the Pell Grant comes from, and then it's subtracted out of the cost of attendance. The maximum award I have up there for the current school year is at $59.20. That does fluctuate based on Congress and their voting status. So currently, if someone had a 0 EFC, which means they're the neediest of students, their family responsibility or the financial information that they reported on the FAFSA means they have no ability to contribute to the school. So they're the neediest of students. So the farther away from 0 you get, and the closer you're getting to sticker price or that cost of attendance, the less money you're going to be getting from the federal government. And we'll get into that on a couple slides. And as I said, the federal direct loans. These are loans for the student, and there are two types. They're subsidized and unsubsidized. They are both processed through the need process of needing aid. The subsidized, you must demonstrate need, which means you have to have your family resources are not enough to fund your education. The most that a first-year student can get is $5,500, and then on down the breakout. The $5,500 is broken into a 35, 2,000 split. So you always want to get the most that you can out of that need base, because the subsidized does not bear any interest to the student while they're in school. The unsubsidized, the interest clock ticks from the time it's dispersed to the school. So if your student gets the best split, which would be 35, 2,000, that subsidized would not have any interest on it until the repayment would begin, which is 6 months after they left school. And as you see, I said left school, because if the student leaves, falls below half-time status, or graduates, within 6 months of one of those 3 things happening, these loans will come due. So you always want to make sure that your student stays at least half-time status if they have to take a hiatus of some kind, so that way their loans don't come due. But the unsubsidized, the interest clock does start to tick from the time that the loan gets dispersed to the school. And the government will only disperse half of the loan in an academic year, because you have a fall session and a spring session. So they'll only be gaining interest on the fall portion starting in September, and then the full loan starting in January once the spring semester hits. And I mentioned the parent loan. So this is what you as parents, if you don't have 529 plan or didn't set aside any funding somewhere for your son or daughter's education, you can always borrow from the federal government to help meet your family responsibility to your son or daughter's education. The government does have the interest rate fixed for you. Currently it's at 7% for the 17-18 school year. Some families would prefer possibly to do a home mortgage. You might get a better interest rate on that. There is another option through the, it's not the government, but it's through banks individually, called private education loans. So most schools will give you a tool to decide on where to go. I can tell you there are a plethora of banks. Most students, you hear Sally Mae. Sally Mae saying, have a student loan with us to help meet your financial responsibility. Sally Mae is one of the biggest processors of private education loans for students to help meet. So the private education loan is the student taking additional debt with a cosigner. That cosigner does not have to be a parent. That cosigner can be your next door neighbor. That can be your best friend down the street. It can be grandparent, aunt, uncle, someone who would be a reputable cosigner for the student if the parent is unable to be a cosigner as well on that. But again, your student then would have the federal loan debt and then this private education loan debt to help meet their responsibility to the school. You can get lower interest rates on those as well, below 7%, because that's based on the market and the portfolio of your cosigner. So some families would choose, let's put the loan in the student's name, I'll be the cosigner, and we'll get a 2% or 3% interest rate versus the government's 7% interest rate. That is also an unsubsidized opportunity where the interest clock does start to tick on that private education loan as well. So there are technically 3 ways on the loan borrowing, but this is the government side, and that's what we're talking about, which is why I presented that. But there is that other option, and you can always ask your school or institution that your son or daughter would go to, what are their private loan recommendations. We don't recommend one bank over another. But there are tools called Fast Choice to help spin the wheel and say, here's a lot of banks that do it. As I said, Sallie Mae is one of the biggest. Citizens Bank, which is here in Fairview Park, they also do that. Citizens Bank also has their own parent loan program, which you might be able to get a better interest rate on than the federal government. So, and I believe there's one other bank that does their own parent loan as well, and that one is not coming to me at the moment. Wells Fargo does private education loans, First Marblehead, just trying to give you some of the local banks that do that, but there is a plethora of banks out there, and usually Fast Choice is the main kind of search engine that schools will have you click on to give you a portfolio side by side. This is what the borrower benefits are for this private education loan versus this one. And we always recommend, if you're going to go the private education loan route versus the parent loan, to do that search engine, to do your shopping before applying. Because you only want to apply once, because you don't want to have your credit keep getting check to check to recheck. As I mentioned, the federal work study or student employment, sometimes you'll just hear it called work study. The reason we like to label it federal work study is not every institution allows students to work on their campus without federal dollars. Most schools will only allow students to work on campus if they have federal dollars, because the government is paying 75% of the paycheck and the schools are paying 25%. And if a student doesn't have federal dollars, then the school is paying 100% of that paycheck, and most institutions don't have that type of budget to do that. But as I said, it gives them another opportunity to work on campus and or off campus. At BW, we have a lot of community partners. Fairview Hospital is one of our community partners through the Ronald McDonald House in the family room. On the children's ward, we have students working there to just kind of make families comfortable that come into the hospital that are visiting a sick child, and they may bring 5 family members with them, and 4 of them are under the age of 2. They can't go visit the sick child. So we've got students working at Fairview Hospital. We have students working at the Boys and Girls Home of Cleveland. We have students working at the libraries tutoring students. We partnered with the Cuyahoga Library. We're partnered at Brook Park, Carver Library, North Olmsted. So anybody, any child age in grades 1 through 8, I believe 9th graders might, but usually not, can go to these libraries for free and get tutoring from a Baldwin student if they're struggling with their classes. I don't know if they send that home with the school district here, but you just go to the Parma Library, the Brook Park Library, or the North Olmsted Library, and you go with that. A lot of students, we had someone who worked at a not-for-profit called Neighborhood Leadership Institute, and 2 of our students turned in full-time jobs for them for working at this Neighborhood Leadership Institute. They did internships there. I'm trying to think where else. We just actually had a company, Litton, which is also an AmeriCorps program. We just had them contact me yesterday. We're trying to get them on board to have our students work for there. And not only if you're all familiar with the AmeriCorps, but your students can get, if they put 300 hours in, they can get money back from AmeriCorps, which can either turn around and pay their educational bill or pay off their educational loan. Yes?
For federal work study, is that based on filling out the FAFSA and need?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, so the school will determine whether or not they have federal work study eligibility, and when you receive the award notification or award packet, it'll have federal work study dollars listed there. If it's not listed, I would just recommend just double checking with the financial aid office and say, I don't see federal work study listed on the award letter, does that mean my son or daughter doesn't have it? And they would make sure you would know. And then I would always ask, well, if my son or daughter doesn't have federal work study, can they still work on campus? Most institutions will do during the registration or orientation weekend, either prior to school starting in the summertime. At Baldwin Wallace, we do a weekend, a Friday, Saturday, and a weekday, 2 days, so it's a 2-day. We have sessions for the student employment, and we talk about who's able to be employed when, federal work study right off the bat, non-work study waits 4 weeks. So just where your son or daughter decides to go, make sure you attend those sessions to know exactly when they can be on campus. And the other thing is, with the federal work study employment, while they're earning these dollars from the government, Uncle Sam wants you to report it as wages earned. But on the FAFSA, there's a question on the FAFSA. If any of you have downloaded a copy already of the FAFSA, just to kind of get a look at the questions, the government says, did any of the wages earned, were they earned through a federal campus employment program? And if the answer is yes, you fill in the blank with the dollars earned. So if your son or daughter works during the summer, earns $3,000 over the summer, and then also earns, say, another $2,000 from the federal work study program throughout the year, that's $5,000 of wages that Uncle Sam has you report. But when the government sees, oh, 2,000 of those wages were earned by federal work study, we're only going to look at the 3,000 that was actually wages earned off campus. So the government backs it out in the whole formula process when coming up with that magic EFC number, which is where you fall on the need scale, which we'll get to in a bit. So it's a good thing to work on campus because you get experience, you connect with campus outside the classroom, and it's another resume builder. We've had several students in our financial aid office that were biology majors, we've had accounting majors, we have a football player right now. So you get out of your comfort zone is where I tell students to look for the campus employment. And my daughter, while she was at Tiffin, Ohio, she worked at the hospital there at their welcome desk, and she also got a job within her major, which was criminal justice, forensic psychology. She actually got to work at the Seneca County Juvenile Correctional Center, which landed that her job right away. So she graduated here in April, she got her job in July. So as I said, it's a stepping stone. So student employment is really important. Kind of talked about all of the programs. It's like, how do I get these? And it's that federal application. That first word is very important, free. Don't pay to have this form filed unless you are using your accountant or someone that you trust does it for you. You do not have to pay for this form, which is why I said FAFSA Help Ohio. We will help you fill out the form. It's free. You want to make sure that we have the address up here, that you're going to the .gov website. Don't go to .com, don't go to .org, want to go to .gov because that's the form. I just kind of quickly did the steps. There's really only 2 steps for filing the application. The first one is the single page, which is the FSA ID. It's a federal student aid ID. And this kind of just gives you a whole little quick synopsis. Not only is it used for the FAFSA, but it's used for several items throughout the financial aid process. Students will have to sign off on their loan. Once students are eligible for the loans in their financial award, you have to do a last step, which I like to call secure the loans. It's an entrance counseling and master promissory note. The government wants the students to understand the contract that they're getting themselves into with this loan program. So this federal ID is used as a digital signature to not only sign off on the federal application, but it's used to sign off on student loan applications for the student and the parent. It's used for debt management through the NSLDS program. As I said, if your student leaves school, falls below half-time status, or then graduates, You'll want to track that loan debt, and there's a government, so everything that the federal ID is used for, I've detailed on this page for you. So those are, I mean, it's pretty easy. It's a two-step process for the FAFSA. We'll go into that here in a few slides, a little more detail. The bullet on the bottom for the application, as I said, it's going to open up here on October 1st. So the government changed it, so if any of you have an older student, the government used to not open the application until January of each year. They opened it up last year early, 3 months, October 1st. So you're going to use the tax data that is on file with the government once the FAFSA opens. So 2016 is your most recent tax data that's on file. There is, within the application, a data retrieval tool. So you click on the data retrieval tool, it takes you out to the IRS website, you just punch in a few little things and it says, oh, back to the FAFSA, it downloads all your tax data for you. Your adjusted gross, your taxes paid, any other adjustments that might be on the tax return. The only thing it doesn't load is W-2 information because it doesn't know if there's two parents working or not. And it doesn't load your cash savings or checking. So the FSA ID registration, as I said, do it now. If you haven't done one already, you'll want to do it now. The reason I say you want to do it now is it goes out to Social Security Administration. And they need to confirm that the name, date of birth, and the Social Security that you're registering under this FSA ID match who it is. And believe me, they really do this because when this came into play, I'm gonna say 3 years ago, I broke the system. I said, oh, I don't want to, I didn't give them my right Social Security number, and then after I fixed that, I didn't give them my right date of birth, and it will come back with messages to say something's wrong, something's wrong. And under this little tab here, under the edit part, you can always go back and fix it. So that's where, whenever you get a message back from the government saying, well, we found your name, but you know your Social Security didn't match, or your date of birth, pay attention to those messages. The best thing you can do is anytime you get an email message, read it. That's the most important thing, is just read it. We find that most people who have problems is because they're not reading the message completely. And like I said, you can, it's fixable because I fixed it. But I just wanted to play to see what kind of error messages would come out, and you can get those messages. Parent needs one as well, at least one parent in the household. And then the student needs their own. And then obviously parent, if this is your first child going off to college next year in 2018, you'll use your FSA ID for all of your children. The FSA ID password that you create, because what you do is you create a username and a password, and the password will expire 18 months from its initiation, so you'll get a message when it's about to expire, and then you just go back in and create a new one. Don't make it hard, make it as easy as possible to remember. There's also another clue when you're creating your ID. There's a box that says show me the text. If you click on that box, show me the text, so that way when you have to retype everything, you're typing it incorrectly. And you can, when you're at these pages, because you get to create 2 security questions yourself. You answer 2 that are pre-populated, and 1 is like a specific day that's unique to you or unique to the person who's getting the ID, your student. Print those pages so you remember, because it is case sensitive. So that's just my other helpful clip when you're filling out the FSA ID. Print those pages, because believe me, people do forget. Oh, I think I put green for my favorite color. Oh, maybe it was blue. I don't know if I capitalized it. I don't know if I, did it all. So I just, for your safety, do that. They also have added, if you want to get the code sent to your phone, so put your cell phone in there. So if you do happen to forget things, because sometimes we have had students, they use their high school email as their email account. Guess what? Your high school email expires when you graduate. You forget anything, you can't reset your FSA ID because you're stuck. So don't have them use their high school email. Have them use Gmail or whatever, anything but their high school email. We had that problem, and then we were on the phone for quite a while trying to get the government to get them to reset their password before they added the security of cell phone having a text message with the code sent to them. So a couple hints there. The actual FAFSA website, as I said, it's .gov. Don't go to .com, don't go to .org. You want to go to .gov because you do not want to pay for it. On this slide, and I don't know how easy it is, but at the very bottom where it says FAFSA filing options, if you click on there, you can actually get to a paper FAFSA application. You don't want to file paper, you want to file online. But if you want to get to a paper application which has some good instructions on it, because when you're actually in the application, each question to the right of the question will be a scroll bar, and that scroll bar will give you answers to your question. And there is always a help button if you need any help. But that under that bottom there, I didn't click on it yet to see if they actually had the 18-19 up there, but you can always go to the 17-18, same questions as 18-19. As I said, caution, do not pay. Processing, so what happens is CPS is the Central Processing Center. So once it goes off, it's going to take 3 to 5 days for it to be processed and sent off to the school. Yes, you're filing in October. Those results are available. Most institutions will not start pulling in the 18-19 results till November, December, or January. So just because you get an email message and you're going to read it in its entirety, because it's going to tell you to go back to the FAFSA to look at the student aid report to make sure that all those answers you answered were answered correctly and processed. Believe me, some families, I had $50,000 of income, they accidentally put an extra zero, $500,000 of income, and they wonder why that their EFC is at 99999. So yeah, so just once you get it processed, you'll get a message, and then go back and check to make sure all the answers were done correctly. Don't call the financial aid offices right away that say, hey, I got my son or daughter's my FAFSA process. When's my award coming out? Give them time. Most universities will start to trickle awards here in November and January. Some of your state schools will not do them till March or April. So it's just a matter of pay attention to the school's website as to when they say that they're going to start doing financial aid award letters. Some of them put them out there, some of them don't. If you don't have an award letter by February 5th or President's Day, go ahead and give them a call and say, you know, I know you've got my son or daughter's application because I've gotten the message back from the government how soon our award letter is going to start to go out. But February is when I would start, you know, making those inquiry calls. How we use the results. So this is where we get into that cost of attendance, that EFC, and the need. So the government calls the EFC expected family contribution. It is not the cash that you have to give. It's the aid index that the government is going to use for figuring out where you fall on the Pell Grant chart, where you fall on the state chart, where you fall on getting any additional need-based money from the school on top of those merit scholarships. So that need is what you need to send your son or daughter there. Be prepared for that need to not be met 100%, because most universities do not. The way to get that need met 100% and your loan debt and student loan debt down are scholarships. So I gave you a list here of what goes into cost of attendance. The standard is tuition and fees, room and board. Some schools will not have fees. Some schools will only have tuition. So what you want to make sure is when you get your son or daughter's financial award letter, it says tuition. Some of them will have fees. They'll have lab fees, they'll have computer fees, they'll have, you know, just a regular student fee, which is on top of tuition, and then obviously room and board. Do any schools include the potential for books already included in that? Most schools will not, so books will be extra, $1,500 to $2,000 a semester, depending on where your son or daughter buys the books, in the university's bookstore or online. So I always suggest give yourself an Excel spreadsheet. Put all your schools, A, B, C, D, E, F on top, and then tuition, fees, room, board, books. Give yourself an Excel spreadsheet. and then bottom line. So that way, you know, you got a bottom line of your sticker price, and then you can start putting scholarships and awards, loans, and giving yourself a bottom line and comparing apples to apples on what's going to be the best financial process for the school. The other thing that goes into cost of attendance, which you don't see, the non-sticker price, books and supplies. The government does allow schools to inflate that sticker price of tuition, room, board fees, because we know that the student has all of this involved. Loan fees, one of the things that I did not mention, so your student gets a $5,500 federal loan from the government. Guess what the government does? There's about a 1.01 or 1.02 processing fee, origination and guarantee. So while they award your son or daughter $5,500, they get $5,441 cash. But they get to pay back $5,500 because there's a loan fee. So schools will take that into account. If your student wants to do a study abroad or an explorations program, they're not going to do that their freshman year. They might do that their junior year. Some of them do in their senior year. BW has a very expensive one called Semester at Sea. We have a student there right now. So he is at sea on a Royal Caribbean ship, which is now a floating classroom, $20,000 for tuition, not counting room and board, and anything extra they do. So you can have a study abroad program where it's the semester's cost. So, you know, it costs BW students, you know, $15,000 to come to BW. Then they have room and board, so it's about a $20,000 tuition, room and board fee. It doesn't cost anything extra. The students do 6 weeks on campus of classroom work. They get to go travel over to Europe for 6 weeks and see everything that they're studying. They go to Italy, France, England, Greece, and they go into all of the museums and all of the art. You know, it's a whole experience of seeing what you've studied in the book. You have to do a journal. A lot of our students have gone to Morocco, but students can pick a spot that is specifically, you know, no extra cost. Students have done like 18-week programs. Students have done 2-week programs. So it's a matter of what your financial picture can hold and what experience your son or daughter wants to get out of their college education. Adult students, if they happen to have a child, they get extra cost into dependence. So these are all the things that are in with education, but separate from that. So not every student does a study abroad program. Some students just come and go. You know, they do their four years on campus and that's it. But it's an experience that a student can have. Some students have gone over to England from BW to do their student teaching. It's the same cost as being on our campus, but you're doing it over in England at one of the universities over there. So make sure if your son or daughter has any aspirations of going abroad, that they get that. What abroad opportunities do you offer on campus when you're doing your campus visits? So basically, cost of attendance. So I've got your Harvard, your BW, and your Tri-C. We've got our costs there. So you've got your cost, that EFC, that's a flat number. So that EFC comes from the FAFSA. All of the financial information that you put on the FAFSA will drive that EFC or the family's ability to pay. You subtract that from each of the schools, that becomes your need. So if you would go to a $40,000 cost of attendance school, the student needs $32,000 to attend, 17 at the yellow school and 5,000 at the blue school. So that's what the school is then trying to award your son or daughter between institutional scholarships, that federal loan, the federal work study, and any other institutional money that the school has to offer your student. So at school 1 in the red, if the school was able to offer $10,000, you would have a $22,000 out of pocket. If the school was able to offer $30,000, you would have a $2,000 out of pocket, because you're looking at the difference. as I said, watch for school deadlines. Some schools will have additional scholarships that they require that are not merit. Students that may go to CASE, they, for their engineering school, they might have an engineering scholarship. They could have an extra essay, could have a test date. So you want to pay attention to any schools that your son or daughter might be attending, that they have opportunities for additional scholarships above and beyond the merit right off of the SAT scores and their college scores, that they have these extra test dates to make sure they meet those deadlines. And submit any additional documentations that may be requested. Sometimes the federal government requires the financial aid offices to double check your answers and double check the results, and that's called a verification process. They may ask you for a copy of the tax return, which you would have to go out to the IRS website and get what's called an IRS tax transcript, because they don't allow us to actually take a copy of your tax return, because believe it or not, sometimes people don't give their correct tax return copy to schools. So we can't take your personal copy, you have to have the actual IRS tax transcript. Doesn't cost you anything to get it. There are other sources, as I said, besides what is offered here at Fairview High School, which is a phenomenal resource for scholarships. So have your son or daughter keep checking the guidance website when usually January those come available. My children got several scholarships by completing those, and it helps that first year. They're not renewable. Sometimes you can find a renewable scholarship. College Now from Greater Cleveland has a great database for outside scholarships. So even if the College Now Greater Cleveland isn't able to offer you a scholarship directly from them, they've got a database where they can have your son or daughter start researching scholarships from there. The Cleveland Foundation, another great resource for outside scholarships within the Cleveland area. And Google and MSN and Yahoo are always your friend for figuring out. I know my friend, he was searching when his kids were in grade school. They hadn't even hit middle school yet. And Matchbox Cars offered a scholarship. And, so they're out there. That left-handed blue-eyed, player of golf. Resources where you can find, hopefully, parents' employers. I know MTD offers scholarships to their employees for their children going, so check with your employer. They might have an opportunity for your son or daughter to get a scholarship from them. Quick checklist of what to follow, what you should be doing now, applying for universities if they haven't done so already, and obviously the FAFSA form. You don't have to do it on October 1st. I used to like it when it was January, because I said if you were saying, hey, Happy New Year, 12/01, hit that FAFSA. But no, you can't do that now. So kind of happy fall. But and you can go back and you can start it and stop it and start it and stop it, because they do allow you, they call it a save key. It's basically your password. I'm going to tell it, it's on camera, but it's easy. I always say if you're filing it for FAFSA 2018, make your save key FAFSA 2018. Filing it for 2019, make your save key FAFSA 2019. Don't make things too hard that you're not going to remember and get stuck, and then you're going to get frustrated, and then you'll be called.
Will it lock you out after so many attempts?
No. Have them apply for scholarships. I know Walmart does a really big scholarship. I believe October is the deadline for Walmart. Kohl's does a big scholarship for students. They're out there. It's just a matter of finding them. And your students have 8 hours of homework, 8 hours is looking for a scholarship. I know, and then they sleep for 2. By May, most students will find their path and know which school they want to go to. Make sure those 8 other schools that your son or daughter applied to, you tell them thank you very much, but we've chosen to go here instead, so that way they can take you off a mailing list, off a calling list, off of everything, so you're not, feeling overwhelmed and why are they still calling me? I know I've given you a lot. My information is on the back. Feel free to call me with questions even if you're not going to come to BW. Because it is generic. Yes.
On the Common App that the kids do, are a lot of, like, if they have schools that they're interested in, is that where they can get a lot of that information about the scholarship, the deadlines, or do they have to go to the school separately away from?
Go to the school separately away from the Common App. The Common App is just the admissions process.
Okay.
It's not the individual criteria for the awarding of a scholarship or a deadline for that. And then, like I said, your schools, like, your medical schools, like Case, they have different, your engineering schools, they'll have different deadlines for specific program scholarships.
I know this question always comes up, if the parents are divorced, who files?
The parent who the child lives with. So if child lives with mom, mom's household is the one who files the form. If mom is remarried, it's mom and stepdad's information that's on the FAFSA. If child lives with dad, then it's dad and dad's remarried, dad and stepmom. So parents are separated, divorced, it's the parent that the child resides with. And then the other parent is not included at all.
Does anybody have any other questions for Carolyn before I do my quick
Yes.
scholarship?
Does 401k money count?
The amount you put into it, not the value of it. So on your W-2, it'll show you how much you put into the 401k in 2016. So it's what you put into it. So if you put $5,000 into it, that's what's reported, because that's the cash you had available in 2016, and you chose to defer it somewhere else. It's not the value of the 401k.
That doesn't count at all?
The value does not. It's just the cash you put into it in the calendar year.
What if you're pulling from it?
That'll show as income on your
Yeah.
tax return. Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned 529.
Mhm.
What about a UTMA?
It's a new one on me.
Custodial account.
Yeah, custodial accounts. That's in the child's name.
So I have not seen it on the form. So I'd have to get back to Jenna. I'll check on that. A UTA.
UTMA.
UTM.
So
Uniform
it's money that you
transfers to
save
minors
your
account.
child name.
I can look up the directions on the FAFSA to see, because it tells you right on the FAFSA, it says everything that you need to include.
Okay.
So that's where the paper FAFSA is going to come. But I can get in touch, I can look that up
Okay.
and then get in touch with Jen to get that back to.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
You mentioned the AmeriCorps program. Is the funding which they get for loan relief or for scholarships, is that in addition to their wages?
Well, at BW it will be, because they're going to work under federal work study for this entity, which is part of AmeriCorps, and then they'll earn the AmeriCorps award. So it will be, at BW, it would be on top of, yeah,
So in essence, from the child's point of view, it's extra money.
correct.
Okay.
But AmeriCorps holds it, and you can only do so many things with it,
Well,
yeah.
It becomes tuition.
Yeah,
right?
you can use it to pay back on the billing account, or you can use it to pay off the loan debt at the end. So it's a win-win, because they're earning experience, and AmeriCorps, you're getting paid under federal work study, and then, and most of the time, AmeriCorps, you're working for free, you're a volunteer, and you're only earning their award. But the partnership that we're going to do is we're going to allow them to work under the federal work study program while they're in school. So they're earning federal work study wages that they've been awarded. Now, keep in mind, it's only $8.15 because that's what Ohio minimum wage is. But they're still getting cash right now, and they'll get an award at some point to give back some way.
What is the approximate amount of the award?
I think it was $1,250. So yeah, that's a significant chunk. If they are able to give up some time. But they have to go through the full 300 hours of working with the AmeriCorps. Yes.
When you were talking about scholarships, there isn't a central location? You say you have to go like to Walmart site, or you go to each? There's no kind of centralized thing?
No.
You just go on like Walmart scholarships?
Just type Google Walmart College Scholarships. And then, but the main central site, like the College Now and the Greater Cleveland, which were part of the things to remember where to look, College Now of Greater Cleveland, and then the Cleveland Foundation, those are two local. The College Now of Greater Cleveland does have a database site. You would have to, make an appointment with one of their advisors. And you and your student to see whether or not you qualify for money from them, and then also ask about their database for scholarships.
And everything you're talking about tonight is that they do their senior year, right?
Correct.
Don't wait till their senior year.
Correct. So if you've got a junior or sophomore, this time senior year.
Except maybe with your employers. You might want to check.
Right, you can check with employers now,
Yeah,
but
we missed one for our junior, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
For my husband's place of work, they offered it as a junior, so.
yeah, and see, and every place of employer has got their own rules for that, yeah. Yes.
There is a smartphone app that's newer for scholarship searching. It's called Scholly, Scholl. Your student can download it to her phone. You can get it on yours. You plug in all the relevant data you need, and it'll come back with a bunch of hits and different ways that you match based on your demographic information that you plug in.
There's a search engine out there called FastWeb as well, but you do sometimes get a lot of spam, But that's a new one on me, that app. But what's here today is, not here tomorrow,
So speaking of scholarships, so let's continue the conversation a little bit. Carolyn said a lot of what I was going to say, so I'll be super quick. Start with the college itself first. And many of the schools, as long as you apply by a specific deadline, and the deadline is usually November, December. So look out for a November 1st deadline, November 15th, December 1st, December 15th. As long as you apply to the college by that deadline, you are automatically put in the pool of consideration for certain scholarships. The minute you apply late, forget it. They're not even going to consider. And like she said, there are certain scholarships that the school will offer that requires more. So an extra application, maybe an essay, maybe a letter of recommendation, maybe an additional transcript. So just tell your student that they need to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row, not only for the college application, but also for any scholarships. Where else can you look? So Naviance, which is a program that we've had now, this is our 3rd year, is a program that we use to do college and career searching, and then it's the program that I use to send everything electronically to the school. So I send transcripts, I send letters of recommendation, my school reports, everything goes through Naviance. Naviance has a national scholarship search tool, and it's sponsored by Sally Mae, so that's telling you that it's legitimate. It's in the colleges tab, and I've shown all of your students this. I went to the English classes and scrolled through Naviance and showed them exactly where to look. So that's a good place to start. That's for national scholarships, and I think they said there's over 1 billion different scholarships. Other websites that are good, School Soup, is a good one. Ohio Means Jobs is another, and these are all free, okay? Do not pay to look for scholarships. If someone is offering to help you, I don't know, I'd be a little leery of that. You shouldn't have to pay, just like the FAFSA, you should not have to pay to look for scholarships. Ohio Means Jobs has a great scholarship tool as well. College Board has a great scholarship tool. CollegeNet and FastWeb, which I gave you, we just happened to get these in the mail today, how timely. So FastWeb, these are all safe sites because there are a lot out there that are spam. Like she said, employers, especially if you belong to a union, a lot of times they will offer scholarships for your children. Hi, come on in. I know like Cleveland Clinic Foundation, university hospitals, big employers like that offer scholarships. If any of you are first responders in the area, there's the Northwest Emergency Team Fund scholarship that actually goes through the Cleveland Foundation. And we've had, gosh, I actually sit on that committee. We've had at least 3 or 4 students in the last couple of years whose parents are police, fire, medic in Fairview, Lakewood, Bay. It's actually the Amy Mahalovic Fund. The money that was put aside to find her is now in this fund, and it's a really solid fund, and theirs is renewable. So that's a good one. So if you're a first responder, your spouse is a first responder, that's a good one to keep out for. Any religious groups or clubs or organizations that either you or any member of your family is involved in, see if they have any scholarships. And then like she said, our school counseling page of the district website, as soon as I find out about a scholarship, I email Amanda Lloyd over at the board office and say, please post this. So there's not a ton on there right now, but like Carolyn said, as soon as the new year rolls over, all of the local scholarships will start popping up, okay? And these are the ones that you need to have your students apply for. All the PTA scholarships, they give out a bunch of scholarships. The Fairview Park Youth Association gives out a bunch of scholarships. Metro West Kiwanis, there's another Kiwanis, the Rotary Club, the Herb Guild, the Education Foundation. Okay, everybody write this down. Education Foundation, one application for 22 different scholarships, okay? They want to give out all of these scholarships, and they try really hard to give 22 scholarships to 22 different students. Some of them are specific, like the Laura Dean is one of them. It's for girls only going into math and science. There's the Coca-Cola in there, which is like a $2,000 or $3,000 scholarship. There's some decent scholarship awards in there, so every student should fill that out. It's one application for 22 different scholarships. I also sit on that committee, so that's why I'm like, please, because we've had years where we didn't have enough students apply. We couldn't give out all the scholarships, which is a shame. Like, who doesn't want money, right? Yes?
Are all of them academic based? I mean, generally? No.
Not necessarily, especially those, and there's criteria for each one. Like the Nelson Russ Memorial Scholarship is one for a football player, or like generally speaking, a football player, a male athlete. There's one for a female athlete, so it just depends. And if you don't think you're gonna
Get it, still apply, and let them count you out.
Right. And then the Rudy Scholarship for the science and tech people. The last 2 years now, that committee has given out 3 scholarships and at 3 different levels. I think we had a 20,000, a 10,000, and a 5, or a 15, a 10, and a 5. Again, that's for kids going into science and technology. You can stretch that to medical, so nursing. I mean, that's a big one. They have to apply. So it's really on the kids at this point. And I tell them this is like your part-time job. Your first part-time job in the fall was applying to college and doing everything you needed to do and following deadlines. Your part-time job in the spring rolls over to applying for scholarships. The more you apply for, the better your odds are at getting at least one, if not a few. And while some of these are not a lot of money, they do add up. And at least, if nothing else, if they could pay for books are expensive. So any little dollar helps. So And like I said, those will start coming out February, March, okay? So once the spring, the end of winter, early spring, they need to be checking our website quite frequently. And again, deadlines are so important because these organizations have a strict timeline where they're trying to award scholarships. So if they're late, they're not going to look at them. Be careful of scams. Like I said, never pay to enter a scholarship competition. Don't give certain information like your birthday, social security number, credit card, or bank account. It may be a scam if it guarantees money, says you can't find the scholarship anywhere else, or says they'll do all of the work for you. Don't trust it necessarily, okay? How do you improve chances of receiving a scholarship? Meet the deadlines. Make sure you read the eligibility requirements. Make sure you know everything that is needed. Make sure if you have letters of recommendation that are needed, make sure you have those. Make sure you have your transcript. Make sure you have essays. Make sure it's filled out completely, which sounds silly, but that does happen where kids don't necessarily complete it. And have it proofread by either myself or an English teacher. That's really important. And what I did tell the kids, you know, right now they're asking their teachers for letters of recommendation for college applications. The beauty of Naviance is that everything gets uploaded in Naviance, and then it's kind of like it's a closet for all of that stuff. So everything gets saved in there. So I tell them, ask your teacher to just write a general letter of recommendation, not school specific, so that when the scholarship application rolls around, if they need a letter of recommendation, instead of asking again, all they have to do is say, Ms. Parente, can you pull Mr. LeBrun's application from Naviance? Sure, no problem. It takes me 30 seconds to go in there, print it out for them. That way it's already done. So that's one step that should already be done. Essays. Luckily, our English teachers have been working really hard with the students. I think all of the senior English teachers are having them write at least one essay for college. So they're going to help make sure that it's edited, that it's proofread, you know, make it personal and make it something different. You know, they don't want to hear, well, I was involved in this, that, and this, and that's it. They want more. So make it personal. So where does the money come from? I got this statistic from the College Board. So it says 37%, and this was in 2014-15, 37% of post-secondary students received a total of $123.8 billion in scholarships and grants. 37% of the free money comes from the government, and that's from filling out the FAFSA. The other comes from the college itself, private or state funds. So just so you have an idea. Other ways to lower the cost of education. We talked about working during college, whether it's work study or just your student is going to get a part-time job. Taking AP and college credit bus can help save money, maybe not up front, but when they realize that they've earned so many credits already towards college, that's going to lower the cost. I've had kids in both scenarios. I've had kids take strictly AP classes and knock off a full year or more of college. I've had kids take CCP classes and knock off a full or 2 years of college. So it can be done. Maybe you need to explore lower cost schools initially. There's nothing wrong with starting off at Tri-C and then transferring. And especially for kids, like let's say Ohio State is, they eat, sleep, breathe Ohio State. Ohio State is extremely competitive at this point. You know, they're looking at an ACT score upwards of a 29, and they're looking, right, it was not that way 10 years ago.
It's 30 now.
Right, upwards of 29. They're looking at GPAs upwards of 3.8, okay? It's not easy to get into as a freshman, but you know what? It's a heck of a lot easier to get in as a transfer student. So a lot of times I'll tell kids, you know what? If that's your dream, if you don't get in as a freshman, go to Tri-C for a year, try it again, your odds are a lot better. Military, you know, the military offers ROTC programs at certain colleges. or enlistment, and then they'll pay for you to go to college. So there are options, and the path is different for everyone. You know, not every student needs to graduate from high school, go to a four-year college. Kids can do it differently, and that's fine. However they can afford it, however you can afford it.
I can speak for the military. At BW, we've had students come with the full tuition scholarship from the ROTC program. But BW doesn't have ROTC itself. They either go to John Carroll for that, or they go off to Akron for the Air Force over there. BW gives them a room and board benefit, $2,500 their freshman year, then $5, $75, $10. So that's just to be an ROTC person. That's it. Don't have to be anything else. So not only can you get an academic scholarship where your tuition is paid, that's usually in the second, third, and fourth years. First year, they don't get that tuition scholarship. They get it in their second, third, and fourth year. So, you know, if your son or daughter is highly thinking of servicing our United States, that's a great way to do it.
I think that's all I have. I was just gonna say, I live in Brunswick, and I have 3 younger students. My oldest is in 6th grade. And which I find this really funny because Brunswick is Medina County. We have a Tri-C campus in the parking lot of the high school. So every time we drive past it to go to football, cheer, band, whatever, I'm like, see that building, kids? See it? You're gonna go there. Either in high school, you're gonna go there, or right after high school, you're gonna go there, at least for a little bit. And then, because it's expensive. So, there's lots of different ways, and there's lots of different paths, and they're all good. It's just a matter of doing what's best for your student. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? If you didn't pick up the, we both had slide handouts. Those are on the cart in the hallway. There's a flyer for FastWeb. Check out the school counseling page of the website. The website is different. I don't know if you've checked it out. It looks really different. To get to our page, you have to select a school. So I would say select the high school. Then there's on the right, there's a list of links. School counseling is one of the links. When you click on that, there's a link to Ohio Means Jobs. There's a link to Naviance, which those are both also scholarship researching tools. So there's all kinds of information in there. If you have any questions, email me, call me. You can come in and sit with me. I can't really help you with the FAFSA because I've never done it because my kids are little. But you can check me out, or like I said, go to the FAFSA Help Ohio website and have someone help you fill it out for free. When you